Now, what does it mean when you're not for upholding human rights and civil rights and women's rights and prisoners' rights? In other words, what Sharpton is saying is if you don't agree with his radical left Marxist political philosophy, then you're not human. Then you don't believe in civil liberty. You don't believe in women's rights. That's what I mean. He's an idiot. And why he keeps getting platforms, I'll never know. And Dr. Boyce Watson, who starts it all, in my opinion, there is not a black man on the court. We need a black person on the court. These two men are dehumanizing blacks as well as whites. In other words, if you're a thinking individual and you happen to disagree with Dr. Boyce Watson or Al Not-So-Sharpton, then you're not black. You're something else. And Dr. Boyce Watson and Al Sharpton, who undoubtedly got his degree in whatever it's in out of a Cheerios box, they get to decide who's black and who's not. They get to decide who's good and who's not. They get to decide who's human and who's not. Isn't this swell? You know, because Clarence Thomas is part of the white right voting bloc. A little bit more. Cut to Dr. Boyce Watson. Go.
I mean, when you talk about Clarence Thomas, he's such an atrocious appointment for the black community that even his wife is a very vocal Tea Party member.
Right.
You know, and which is, to some extent, it undermines his integrity as a judge to even have a spouse that is so politically active.
Really? Really? So she should stay in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant. Is that it, Dr. Boyce Watson? Whoever the hell you are, you loser? So there you have it. Dr. Boyce Watson thinks that if you're married to a professional man and you're, let's say, a judge or a justice, then you need to stay out of unless, of course, you're the head of the ACLU in Los Angeles and you're married to a circuit court judge. Then Dr. Boyce Watson, you're not even on his radar screen. And this Al Sharpton is a hater. Oh, he pretends. He pretends. But he's a hater. Now let me tell you something, Dr. Boyce Watson. Clarence Thomas is an American. Clarence Thomas, if you bothered to read his book, grew up a very, very poor young man raised by his grandparents. I don't know what your background is. I don't even care because you're irrelevant. I'm using you as a punching bag because you're a moron. Clarence Thomas has lived a hard life. And he's a successful man. He's a thinker. Because he rejects losers, pathetic, predictable losers like you, Dr. Boyce Watson, social commentator. And Al Sharpton. Hey, Al, do you realize how many people find you detestable? Do you realize how many people have zero respect for you? And by the way, it's not because you're black. It's because you're an ass. You're a fecal head. You're an ambulance chaser. You always show up at the scene. You're not even a doctor or a nurse. And whatever degree you have, like I said, I don't know where you got it from. I'm sure it's very legitimate and professional, but you don't act like a preacher. You don't act like a preacher. And let me tell you something, because you're so blinded by your hate, Sharpton and Watson. Yes, Clarence Thomas is a black man. You don't get to decide who's black in this country and who's not. And you don't get to decide who's human and who's not. As a matter of fact, you don't get to decide crap, because nobody's elected you two losers to anything. Sharpton with his intimidation tactics. You going to get your lawyers to call me Sharpton? Huge mistake. Huge mistake. I will depose your fat ass and expose everything that I can find about you. You go on the radio with your racist, race-baiting crap, and of course the FCC turns the other way. All the liberal Democrat politicians talk about hate talk radio. Do they ever talk about you, Sharpton, the hater? The hater of the haters? No. You give talk radio a bad name. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.